No Rest for the Wicked sees Ori developer Moon Studios building an action RPG for the very first time. But despite its familiar isometric perspective, the project is very different from popular ARPGs like Diablo and Path of Exile. Combat in No Rest for the Wicked is deliberate and tactical, and every swing of the sword counts. In short, if you like the nail-biting experience of Dark Souls boss battles, then it looks like Moon Studios may be making your next favourite game. To learn more about No Rest for the Wicked's deep battle systems, we spoke to two of its developers, who gave us a deep dive on their ambitions for combat and the ideas behind the game's first terrifying boss.
The major goal for our combat was to make it feel super visceral, right? And to make sure that, hey, we create a combat system where animations also really matter. When you press a button, then you get really satisfying swings and so on. It doesn't turn into spam, right? We wanted it to feel very visceral and tactical.
It's about making it feel a bit more personal, a bit closer, a bit more focused. So it's not this overflow of sensory information where you just cannot really tell what's going on screen, but you actually feel every single action of your character. It's up close, it's focused, it's not 20 enemies on screen all against you. It's encounter after encounter, and every single move matters.
A lot of the top-down ARPGs out there play very similarly, and that's, where we said, hey, we should probably take a different direction. And we were more inspired not by Diablo in terms of the combat, but by Souls and Monster Hunter and so on. We definitely also took influence from fighting games, right? We always liked the whole thing where you could do combos like light punch, fierce kick, Hadouken, right? So we wanted to kind of infuse that a little bit. We wanted to do things like, hey, I can do combo A, combo B, and then do a special attack, right? And then do a combo C and so on.
On top of that, we also have these runes that provide you these specials which are different for every weapon, and those are these really crazy moves that we can now do because we have a top-down camera perspective that we couldn't do probably in a third-person view.
Blood-rusted sword is one of the straight swords that we have, right? But yours could be a fire-enchanted one that gives you more focus for every hit that you deal. Or the other guy could have a cursed blood-rusted sword that deals more damage, but you also take more damage and so on.
As with all action RPGs, Battle in No Rest for the Wicked isn't just a case of hammering the attack button. There's multiple character elements to take into consideration at all times, including health, your magic resource, and stamina.
When we came up with the boss fight, the idea is that it shouldn't feel like you're just running around and spamming all the time, but it's more strategic and tactical, and that is where the stamina system comes in.
Very tactical that way, right? Where you actually have to consider, hey, will I deal that hit still, and do I then have enough stamina if the enemy counters that I can actually dodge away from that next hit and so on? Yeah. We don't have a mana system. We wanted to come up with something where, well, you don't have this resource that just depletes and then you need to drink a potion to fill it back up again, right? We wanted that to be more dynamic. So our focus kind of increases as you play better in combat, right? Like you get focus. And that's the resource that you use to actually perform these rune specials.
It creates this push and pull dynamic where you can build up your focus, then you do a cool special, then you have to build it up again, and it creates this really cool dynamic there.
For a mage class, right? Like we didn't want you to just hang back somewhere and poof fireballs and be able to do that infinitely. Like we wanted to do something where it's like, well, every class always has to be engaged.
All of these ideas coalesce in No Rest for the Wicked's first boss battle. Your first major foe is the grotesque Warwick the Torn, a frantic attacker whose speed defies his enormous size.
The rumor is that he used to be a man, and now he's part of this class in this world that we call the Torn, which are basically plague creatures that are affected by this magical plague.
They say it used to be a man. I wanted to go after it, but Father says...
Father says the Torn are not to be trifled with. And he's right.
We want to get your heart rate as high as possible. How am I going to do this? How am I going to beat this? This is relentless. This is impossible. And then little by little, it's like a puzzle that you figure out. Throughout the fight, he is not just relentless, but he also creates distance from you. So he will jump back from you, or he would do the sword attack and he would kind of roll back, which will work really nicely in multiplayer. My favorite part is when he gets angrier and he gets even more relentless and he starts jumping. And you have this really powerful fantasy thing where it's not just a creature that's on the ground, but he also has this crazy mobility, right, to get to you. And I think that's just terrifying.
Warwick may be terrifying, but the guys at Moon Studios have some helpful advice for when you eventually face down this plagued monstrosity yourself.
I have an amazing tip. You meet Fillmore the blacksmith early on, and when you talk to him, he will actually sell you some stuff. The scrap bombs that he sells, they're very good.
He doesn't like fire. He really doesn't like fire, this Warwick guy. Fire is bad for him.
To see the battle with Warwick in full, take a look at our No Rest for the Wicked gameplay video. And for even more from this beautiful new ARPG, be sure to tune into Wicked Inside on March 1st. And stick with IGN throughout February, as we have plenty more details straight from Moon Studios.